Hey, you know what's funny? No one claps when you suffer quietly. No applause when you choke on your own tears in the dark. No standing ovation when you crawl through hell wearing a smile so no one notices the cracks. They don't see the nights you stayed awake with your mind chewing itself alive. The mornings you stood up when everything inside you said stay down, and still you moved. You didn't break. Maybe you bent a little, maybe a lot, but you never shattered. They thought you'd fold. They wanted you to. They whispered, laughed, pointed fingers, waited for your knees to buckle. But you didn't give them the show. You gave silence. You gave resistance. And somewhere in all that chaos, somewhere in the noise of being tested over and over again, you didn't even notice you passed. Ah, endurance. Such a glamorous word for something so ugly, so raw, so unseen. People love to talk about strength like it's a show, like it's fists through walls or speeches on stages. They talk about the kind of strength that bleeds in the dark, the kind that cries into pillows just quiet enough not to wake the rest of the house. The kind that looks at the mirror every morning with swollen eyes and still puts on the same mask. Not because you're okay, but because you don't have the luxury to fall apart. See, they'll never clap for the ones who endure in silence. No medals for surviving battles that left no scars on the outside, but inside, it's a graveyard. A battlefield, a museum of every moment you wanted to scream but chose to smile instead. That kind of strength is invisible. Not because it's small, no, but because this world only respects pain when it's loud. They need drama, tears in public, a breakdown on camera. Otherwise, you're just being dramatic or too sensitive or worse, strong, like it's a compliment, like it's something you chose. No one sees the 10,000 deaths you die in your head, the arguments you have with ghosts, the nights you lie awake staring at the ceiling wondering if it's ever going to end. But you keep going. You get up. You eat even when the food tastes like ash. You work even when your bones scream for rest. You smile even when joy feels like a language you forgot. You endure, and you do it without noise, without banners, without sympathy. And somehow that makes them believe it was easy. It's funny, isn't it? The way people look at you and say, you're strong, like it's a badge of honor. But strength was never the goal. Survival was. Sanity was. Getting through just one more day without losing your mind, that was the mission. And still, they think you've got it all figured out. They think calm means peace. But you and I know better. Sometimes calm is just exhaustion dressed in silence. Sometimes peace is just numbness in a new coat. The truth is, the strongest people are the ones no one notices, the ones who sit in crowded rooms with a war raging behind their eyes, the ones who laugh at jokes they don't hear, who say, I'm fine so well it deserves an Oscar, and they do it every day. Not because they're trying to be heroes, but because if they ever dropped the act, even for a second, everything might crumble. That's the price of quiet strength. You hold the whole damn building together, and no one even knows you're doing it. They'll never understand what it costs to endure in silence. To bottle every scream, to swallow every tear, to keep your hands steady when your heart's a ticking time bomb. But you know, you've lived it. You've stared down the abyss and said, not today, over and over again. You've carried weights no one can see and kept smiling like it doesn't crush you. And maybe, just maybe, that's why it hasn't. Maybe because you never asked for pity. Maybe because you never needed applause. Maybe because you knew that endurance wasn't about recognition. It was about refusal. Refusing to let the world turn you cold. Refusing to give up. Refusing to disappear just because it hurt to exist. They call it strength, but it's something else, something messier, something braver. It's not the kind of strength they write songs about. It's not cinematic. It doesn't come with lighting or background music. It's silent, it's ugly, it's lonely, but it's real and it's rare. Most people would have folded by now. Most people would have snapped, but you stayed, you endured quietly, without needing anyone to see it. Without needing anyone to understand. You did it in silence, and somehow that made it louder than anything they could imagine. Tests. Now that's the part nobody talks about properly. They all want answers, but no one wants to admit they're even being tested. That's the joke. Life doesn't come with a warning bell, no little timer ticking in the corner telling you when the exam starts. No rules, no instructions, not even a question sheet. It just throws you into the middle of chaos and watches to see what you'll do. People expect divine signs, neon lights flashing. This is a test. But that's not how it works. No. The real tests, they come wrapped in silence. They look like betrayal. They feel like abandonment. They sound like your own voice whispering, maybe I'm not enough. See, the funny thing about tests is they never look like tests while you're in them. You think you're just losing friends. You think you're just getting rejected. You think it's bad luck, a rough patch, a series of unfortunate events. But it's not. It's a setup. Not for failure, no, for transformation. It's pressure, heat, friction, elements that break the weak and forge the real ones. But you don't know that in the moment. In the moment, it feels like you're drowning. Like the world is punishing you for something you can't even name. And while everyone else seems to be breathing just fine, you're the one gasping in the deep end, trying not to sink. And then there's this part. Oh, this is rich. The part where people around you start noticing, but not in the way you hope. They don't offer lifelines, no. They offer advice, useless little phrases like, just be positive, or everything happens for a reason, while you're bleeding out inside. That's part of the test, too. Can you hear the noise and still trust your own voice? Can you sit in the fire without screaming for someone else to put it out? Can you be in the middle of chaos and still choose not to become it? No one teaches you that the test isn't about passing or failing. It's about who you become while you're trying to figure it out. You lose people. You lose your comfort zones. You lose pieces of yourself you thought you'd never let go of. And that hurts. Oh, it hurts like hell. But pain, see, pain is a very precise teacher. It doesn't waste time. It goes straight to the part of you that needs changing. It rips open what you've been hiding and says, deal with this. Most run, most numb it, bury it, distract themselves. But the ones who don't, the ones who sit with the discomfort, who stare into their own shadows without blinking, those are the ones who pass. And don't get me started on the silence, because that's where the real exam begins. When the world gets quiet, when no one checks in, when it feels like even God forgot your name. That's silence. That's not emptiness. That's the test room. That's where your soul speaks up. That's where you find out whether your faith was real or just decoration. Because when you don't hear answers and you still move forward, that's the moment the exam flips its last page and you realize maybe you knew what to do all along. Maybe you were never waiting on a sign. Maybe the test was to prove to yourself what you're made of. And still, you don't get a result sheet, no pat on the back, no big red A+ stamped across your chest. You just wake up one day and realize it doesn't hurt like it used to. You walk through the same hellfire that used to melt you, and now it barely even leaves a burn. You see the people who used to control you, and they've lost their power. You don't react, you observe. You don't chase, you attract. And that's when you know, not because someone told you, but because the world looks different now. Or maybe it's you who looks different, stronger, sharper, less afraid. That's how you find out you passed, not with celebration, but with transformation. Not with praise, but with peace. Not with noise, but with quiet. Understanding that you were always being watched. Not judged, just observed, to see if you would fold like the others or rise like the storm no one saw coming. Growth. Now there's a pretty little word for something so brutal, so twisted, it should come with a warning label. Everyone loves to chant about it, personal growth, self-improvement, becoming your best self. But what they don't say, what they don't dare whisper out loud, is that real growth doesn't come in the light. It comes in the dark. It's not found on stage or under a spotlight. It's found when no one's watching, when you're curled up in silence, when your phone's on 0 notifications, when the world forgets you exist and you have to decide whether you still matter without their eyes on you. You don't grow when they cheer. You don't grow when they love you. You grow when they leave, when you get ghosted, when you're lied to, when you're standing in the rubble of your expectations, trying to remember why you ever believed in people in the first place. That's where it starts. Growth isn't gentle. It doesn't come with affirmations and lavender candles. No, it drags you through the glass, shatters every illusion you built about who you were supposed to be, and forces you to face the raw, unfiltered version of yourself. Not the version with the nice clothes and polite smile. The version with blood on its hands, rage in its chest, and questions that never seem to get answered. And you know what the worst part is? No one notices. No crowd, no witnesses, no applause when you stop responding to that toxic message, no celebration when you walk away from what broke you, because growth is invisible when it's real. The loudest changes are the ones nobody hears. The biggest wins are the ones you keep to yourself. You outgrow people, places, versions of yourself, and you do it in silence. Not because you want to, but because there's no one around to listen. That's the trick. The silence isn't a punishment, it's the test. It's the forge. People talk like growth is a choice, like you can just wake up one morning and decide to become better. But no one tells you about the war you'll have to fight with your own mind. No one talks about the nights you'll want to run back to the chaos just because it's familiar. No one prepares you for the loneliness that comes with healing. Because once you start growing, you stop fitting. You stop fitting into their drama, into their games, into the mold they tried to stuff you into. And that scares them. Oh, it terrifies them. Because the moment you start evolving, you become unpredictable. You stop reacting the way you used to. You stop needing their validation. You stop being easy to manipulate. That's when they turn on you. That's when they say, you've changed. That's when the whispers start. They don't say it to your face, of course. That would require courage. No, they whisper in corners, in group chats, in digital shadows. She thinks she's better now. He's acting different. Damn right. Growth doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for acceptance. It rips off the old skin and lets the new one bleed its way in. And if they can't handle that, well, that's not your problem anymore. You start making choices that confuse them. You set boundaries they don't understand. You say no without an explanation, and it rattles their entire script. Because the old version of you would have bent, would have smiled, would have said it's okay just to keep the peace. But now you've met the real you, the you that doesn't beg, the you that doesn't shrink to fit small rooms. And once that version shows up, there's no going back. And maybe that's the real punchline. Growth doesn't look good. Not at first. It looks like isolation, like distance, like madness. But it's not. It's clarity. It's freedom. It's finally seeing things for what they are and choosing yourself anyway. Not out of pride, out of necessity, out of survival. You grow when you realize that no one's coming to save you, that the old life isn't waiting to welcome you back, that the only way forward is through the fire, alone, unapplauded, uncelebrated, but freer than you've ever been. They love to talk about strength, don't they? Mental strength, emotional strength, like it's some badge you wear on your chest, polished and shiny, proof that nothing ever gets to you. But what they never say, what they don't dare admit, is that strength isn't about being unshaken. Real strength is about breaking and getting back up anyway, over and over again, with fewer pieces each time maybe, but more power in every shard. They think strength means not feeling, but it's the opposite. It's feeling everything, deeply, brutally, and still choosing not to be swallowed by it. People love the image of the strong one, stoic, untouchable, calm. But what they forget is what it takes to become that person. The nights you cry in silence, the mornings you wake up numb, the moments you fake a smile so no one asks too many questions. Because God forbid the strong one needs help, right? No, you're not allowed to be tired, not allowed to fall apart. You're the one who holds everything together, their anchor, their rock, their emotional punching bag. And the moment you set boundaries, the moment you say enough, suddenly you're the villain in their little play. That's the thing about being strong. They expect it from you, even when it's killing you. They mistake your silence for consent, your tolerance for weakness, your stillness for surrender. But you're not weak. You're calculating, watching, learning, waiting for the right moment to strike or walk away, whichever feels more satisfying. You let them think you're unaffected, when deep down you've been bleeding behind a smile they'll never earn the right to understand. And what happens when the strong one finally snaps? When the one who always kept it together decides they've had enough? They call you cold. They call you selfish. They act like you owe them something just because you were once willing to carry their weight. But strength, real strength, means knowing when to stop. When to stop explaining, when to stop showing up, when to stop proving your worth to people who never deserved it in the first place. You don't need their praise. You don't need their permission. You've survived worse than their disapproval. The irony is that the ones who test your strength the most are always the ones who couldn't last a day in your shoes. The same people who call you heartless would have crumbled under half the pressure you've carried. The same ones who question your choices never had to make them. They live in a fantasy where things are fair, where people mean what they say, where loyalty is rewarded and love is enough. But you woke up. You saw the truth. You learned that not everyone clapping is happy for you, that some smiles hide envy, that some hands only reach out to pull you down. You became strong because you had no other choice. It wasn't noble, it wasn't poetic, it was survival. It was pain layered on pain until you learned to breathe through the cracks, until you learned to walk with wounds and still keep your head high. And now they fear you, not because you're dangerous, but because you're no longer controllable. They can't guilt you, can't shame you, can't manipulate you with the same trick. You've seen too much, felt too much, outgrown too much. And maybe that's what scares them the most. That you didn't just survive, you evolved. You turned the very things meant to break you into armor, into weapons, into wisdom. You took every betrayal, every heartbreak, every lie, and wove it into your spine. And now, when they look at you, they don't see someone cold. They see someone they can't reach. Someone who won't bend. Someone who's finally learned that strength doesn't mean staying in the fire for others. It means walking out and letting it burn behind you without flinching. They say forgiveness is for the strong. What a lovely little bedtime story that is. Sweet, soothing, utterly naive. The kind of thing they tell you to keep you docile, to keep you quiet while they keep twisting the knife. Let it go, they whisper. It's the right thing to do. But no one ever asks what it costs you, do they? No one talks about the rage swallowing your insides while you smile politely. No one mentions how your hands shake when you pretend it didn't matter. They only praise your ability to stay silent while they keep crossing lines like they were never there to begin with. Because here's the truth they don't print in self-help books. Some people don't deserve your forgiveness. Some things aren't meant to be healed. Some wounds were carved so deep they became part of your design. And that's okay. That's not weakness. That's memory. That's survival. Forgiveness isn't always about freeing yourself. Sometimes it's about keeping your eyes open. Keeping the blade sharp, making sure you never forget what was done to you, and more importantly, who did it with a smile on their face and your trust in their hands. They love to call you bitter, don't they? Cold, hardened. They say you've changed, that you're too guarded now, too distant. But what they really mean is they can't manipulate you anymore. You don't flinch the same way. Don't respond to their little games with the same eager energy. You learned. You adapted. And now they don't know how to get under your skin, so they call you the problem. Classic deflection. Beautiful in its predictability. But what they forget is that pain is a teacher, maybe the best one. Every time someone broke a promise, every time someone showed you their true face when they thought you weren't looking, you took notes. And now you've got a playbook they'll never understand. They think you're just cold. No, you're strategic. They think you're distant. No, you're observant. They think you're unforgiving. No, you're protecting yourself from a second betrayal. You already paid the price once. Why offer a discount now? They say holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Cute. But let's talk about the poison they poured into your cup first. Let's talk about how they smiled while they served it. Let's talk about how they watched you drink it down, knowing full well what it would do to you. And then, when the consequences finally set in, when you started spitting it back out and shaking the fog from your head, suddenly you're the one with the problem, not them. Never them. They act confused when you go quiet, when you don't come around anymore, when you don't return the calls, the messages, the guilt-laced just checking in texts. But what they're really doing is testing the waters, seeing if you still bleed from the same old scars. They're not sorry. They're curious. Curious if the spell still works, if the version of you they broke still exists somewhere inside the new one you've become. But it doesn't. That version died the day you realized they never had your back. Just your weakness mapped out in their hands like a blueprint. You're not bitter. You're awake. There's a difference. Bitterness is clinging to pain like a trophy. Awareness is recognizing the battlefield and walking through it with your armor on tight and your heart sealed in steel. Forgiveness? It's a luxury, one you hand out only when it serves you, not them. You don't owe anyone a pardon just because they've suddenly decided to remember your worth. They remember now because you stopped giving, because you stopped bowing, because you finally said no. And no, it doesn't mean you hate them. Hate takes energy. Hate takes presence. You don't hate them. You've outgrown them. You've erased them from the core of your narrative. They were just a plot device, a necessary villain. You're not stuck in the chapter where they won. You turned the page. You're writing your own ending now, one where they don't get to play the hero. Not this time. Not again.